Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I will like to repeat what is our discussion topic. So it is Omnichannel Orchestration, Mastering the Multi-Platform for Conversation Marketing Campaigns. And today we have a lovely panelist who has diverse experience across B2B, B2C, so much innovation, so many things are happening across the industry and the product to really deep dive into what is really happening on the ground. So before we start the discussion, I would like to just set up the agenda. This is the experience that we have been catering as an organization to various brands. We for sure understand that today enabling customer experiential journey is an utmost success parameters for any business while they are interacting with their users. And today if we see, the complexity of customer journey is increasing multiple fold times, right? Many places I repeat a similar case study. I, as in a customer, I came across a product when my friend was talking about it, right? Or I watched it during an IPL session. Now, what is my next action? Probably I will go to Google search and look for that product and seek more information, right? And next day, I go to Facebook, go to my news feed, right? And I see a similar ad that I was looking for. And this ad is now following me across my social channels. So I'll just leave it here. So what is happening? Three things what I can see. First is customers hopping across different channels, whether it's social, search, and all, and trying to seek information. Second, if we see customer is looking for some kind of conversational journey experience to make him reach to a second step of converting. That is the transaction that needs to happen. So are we providing the right conversational experience to convert that into a transaction? And third, imagine I don't buy that product online. I go to a store, offline store, and buy that product. Now, I started my journey when I came to know about this product through a friend or on a television. I went on search, I went on social, and I ended up buying in a store. So what is the attribution methodology here? How we are tracking it, right? And who gets the credit? Which channel gets the credit? So these kind of methodologies are getting more complex. How do we track it? Second is what we see is orchestration. Now, as customer is on different channels, different business models that organizations are creating, right, and different platforms, it is very important how do you create right conversational experience, how you are cementing and creating cohesiveness, unified user experience. Are we tracking that customer came on which channel last time, and should we give preference on the same channel? Is business getting the right kind of KPIs or parameters on which they can see that, okay, this channel is good for our ROI, and it is in harmonization with customer experience and the behavior. And third, before we start into the discussion, is the attribution. Today, though it has always been there, it is getting more complex where marketer wants to track the performance and the ROI for each penny that they're spending, whether it is online and offline. Right. And in the same time, your CTAs, the attribution is changing not just from CTAs to customer engagement, the interaction, the amount of time you are spending on a particular platform, right? Your customer experience score. So a lot of new KPIs around attribution are becoming much more complex. And while we speak to brands, I always see brands are looking for one silver bullet that can solve all complexity and give them a single view. But the reality is, while marketers and brands are using different platforms, different channels, it becomes very important that what kind of silver bullet we can create for each specific organization so that we can give them a right user experience while we are tracking, while we are using the orchestration or the attribution platform. So putting this up, now I would like to invite my panelists to really dig into what is actually happening on ground. So my first question is to Swagat. Is from Smytten. So as a direct-to-consumer brand, what has been your experience in creating an omni-channel marketing strategy?
We own an app platform where we deal with almost more than 20 million users with close to about 1 million DAU. See, the thing is, in the last 3-4 years, if you see, as you rightly mentioned, the consumer journey has become a lot more complex. And on top of it, we also own the offline stores. So the first thing what we realized is identifying what journey exactly you want to track the consumer with. So the data is key, and we all keep talking about the data, right? So, and a lot of things, if you see today, we confuse a CRM and engagement kind of interchangeably. The first approach one needs to change is from a CRM to going to a consumer engagement platform. And that is where, again, a lot of your data pipelines, your data warehousing, data architecture kind of comes into play. That is the only way you will be able to orchestrate any kind of a multi-channel conversation with the user. I'll give you a small example, right? So today, if a consumer is coming onto our app and engaging with a product, let's say, and the same consumer, when they are kind of walking into a store, and when they're kind of punching their number in the store, we know that the consumer has interacted with 10 different products, and we have QR codes in the store where the consumer can actually scan the QR code and look at the product description in detail. If it is any of the product where the consumer has previously browsed on the internet, we immediately give a nudge to the consumer that, hey, probably you left this in your cart, and why don't you kind of consider? And immediately there is a nudge that goes into the POS. So kind of figuring out what kind of a data flow you want to have, and figuring out the opportunities where the consumer doesn't feel threatened, the consumer doesn't feel bombarded with communication. I think that's the key for any kind of an omni-channel strategy. Be it a D2C brand, be it a platform, I don't think today you can live without a consumer engagement platform. So I'll start from there. The second thing what we have realized is, and this is something we learned with our mistakes, you get very overwhelmed and you start defining a lot of flows because the consumer is taking 20 different actions. And now you are kind of bombarding the same user in multiple channels with different communications because the same user is getting into 3 different kind of flows. And the consumer's journey today is not very linear. It's not that a consumer is coming and saying, okay, I will see the product, then I will add it to the cart, or I'll do a wish list, and then I will kind of check out, right? The consumer might have added something in the wish list like some 3 months back, but his whole preferences is completely changed. And understanding that and saying that, okay, I'm not gonna make an irrelevant communication with the user because the user preferences have changed. So these are the 2 things, the biggest learning that we have had when you think of an omni-channel strategy.
That's very interesting because what I can see is that how the CRM models are now evolving. Right now, it is not just a traditional CRM where you are just getting a view of a customer, but what do you do with that data, right? And how do you engage with those customers omni-channel? Because a CRM is able to capture the offline interactions and how it is doing, right? So I think processes also becomes very important while implementing a right CRM strategy. So Abhay, I would come to you. So at TVS Motors, how you're driving customer experience? If you see, the sales is there, you have an offline distribution, and new channels are getting into presence, like metaverse, if you see, or live commerce. So can you share what has been your thought from omni-channel strategy when there is a physical distribution?
Sure, thank you so much, Ankur. So I think my job at TVS Motor Company as a head of digital innovation was to not just look at bringing incremental changes in the way we currently use channels to create more seamless experiences for our consumers, but to also look at differentiated channels that we more often than not have not utilized yet, right, in the automotive industry at large. And like you pointed out, right, so outside of my current role, there's another portfolio that I manage, which is TVS Motorverse, which is a metaverse product, which I own, as an end-to-end product. So metaverse is one of them. The other is live commerce. Another could be hyper AI. But the fundamental underlying conversation about this or context to this is hyper-personalization and seamless experiences to new age audiences. Now, when I talk about live commerce, when I was growing up, I would always see this on television, late evenings, you would switch on your TV, and there used to be this Asia Teleshopping or Naptol kind of shows going on, right? Which meant that, if there were fancy spiels around, this is an amazing product, why don't you call up on this number, and so on and so forth, right? And I realized that at TVS, we have a lot of product launches happening every year. Now, when these product launches are happening, I noticed that there's an impulse purchase behavior of the consumers who are very inspired, they see aspirational products, and they want to purchase it then and there. And that was something that was not happening. So I said, why don't we try a pilot on live commerce, convince the internal stakeholders around that. And for the RTR 310, the Naked Street Bike launch that we had in Bangkok towards the second half of last year, we piloted live commerce. To our surprise, 15% of the total sales in that span of 1 month came through live commerce, which was never explored. In my head was a very low-hanging fruit, and no one had tapped into that. And I perceived this to be TVS first. To my surprise, it was not TVS first, it was automotive two-wheeler first, and then potentially automotive first in India, right? So it is strange that some of these more obvious channels are not being explored. The same is the case with metaverse. Now today, metaverse is not considered to be a meaningful channel because there's no value proposition for most consumers, right? A lot of brands have launched metaverses, and if I can be candid enough to say it, that it's for PR, right? That I mean, TVS launched their first version of metaverse back in October 2022, and we're the first automotive company in the two-wheeler space to launch our own metaverse, right? But I don't foresee a lot of value proposition today unless you really activate that by meaningful offerings, right? And when I say meaningful offerings, again, coming back to hyper-personalization, can you hyper-personalize avatar? Of course you can. A lot of people are doing that. But can you hyper-personalize everything in that environment? For example, can I get consumers to connect their Spotify playlist? So when they're experiencing the metaverse, they're listening to the same playlist that they would listen otherwise. Can the showrooming experience that they're looking at change from a garage look to a more polished showroom and so on and so forth? Right, so hyper-personalization, everything transactional and more phygital. So when you talk about omni-channel, metaverses, typically you think that it's a very digital play, but no, it's a phygital play. Whatever you're seeing in metaverse, how can that benefit you in the real world as well? Right? So those kind of value propositions have to be made out there. Again, to give you a vertical integration example in metaverse, a consumer can come in, have you have people have RC books, right? Registration cards or whatever, right? Copies. You have a vehicle digital passport available there, which tells you that your bike is due for servicing. Can you raise a request for service on metaverse? Can you take a loan to purchase a new product? Then and there. Can you try out new merchandise and apparel and spare parts then and there, right? Can you purchase real estate because TVS has TVS Emerald, which is into real estate, right? Can you purchase an insurance? So on and so forth. So when you make all these offerings available in a seamless transactional way possible, then you would see that metaverses will eventually replace websites, right, as more interactive form factors to consume data and interact with the third person. So I think those are some of the points. And there are multiple other channels that we have explored, but our job is to look at what consumers really want and then think about what channels can offer them.
That's very interesting to know because phygital is a new buzzword, and that we see how TVS is really experimenting and making it live, right? So much we read about metaverse, but really thought from the organization that how do I implement and create a right user experience, right from the conversation till transactions and then service and support. And very good to know about the live commerce where you are getting a 15% conversion. These, I think, live case studies, that is how omni-channel across, whether it is metaverse to messaging to social, are converging at one place. Okay, thank you so much. And now coming back to Argho. So with your experience, can you share your thoughts how omni-channel attribution works in a PayU? While you are talking about B2B, the merchant environment, and customers are also involved while the payment or merchants are paying. So can you share your thought?
So actually what I will do now, I will take a step back. Right. The reason is that talking about omni-channel is much easier than actually implementing it. So my job here, speaking about omni-channel, is much more easier than the guys out there who want to actually implement it. So if not omni-channel, what is the first question we should ask, right? So if we step back, now we either live in an omni-channel world, right, which some people say is table stakes, or we are in a multi-channel world. So in a work environment, how I would define it is, multi-channel is when you're answering who gets credit. That's multi-channel, that's it. And omni-channel is how we defined it, who did what, and how did it help. That's the basic understanding, and that's the point you start building omni-channel up. Now, is omni-channel marketing important today? That's what the customer is demanding, right? It's not what we want to offer, it's what the customer demands, right? And omni-channel is what will end up being the edge that your brand has or the moat that your brand has, depending on who you're addressing. If you're addressing a consumer, it becomes your edge. If you're addressing a customer, it becomes your moat. So it's absolutely essential for survival. Now, how does attribution or omni-channel attribution help, right, in a B2B context and a B2C context. So quickly diving down there is first thing, both for B2B and B2C, for PayU and any other companies, earlier B2C companies I have been with. The first thing it does for us is help us move out duplication, right? Once, because at the end of the day, we might be selling at 4 different touch points, and duplication not only costs us money, but also in a B2B environment or a B2C environment, it costs human capital, right? So that is what Omnichannel helps us with. The next thing Omnichannel helps us in a B2C context is better retargeting. And a B2B context, better follow-up. So I'll just take some time to explain both. So once maybe you have bought a t-shirt, but you still see the same t-shirt coming back to you but getting retargeted, right? More often than not, the company is following a, multi-channel, conversation with you, because they do not know or they do not have real-time data that you have already consumed that, right? In terms of B2B, it goes back because we create a lead, we set up a meeting, and we give it or maybe hand it over, if it is not a DIY product, to the sales team. If I'm not getting feedback from the sales team, what actually has happened in real time, then the whole idea is the next steps that I'm taking will be all guesswork. So having a scientific data-based approach always helps. The third bit it does is omni-channel attribution gives us exact measurement of what is helping and what is not. Now, in this competitive world, we do not operate with unlimited resources. So if I'm a B2C brand, I will be able to look which part of my marketing funnel is the most efficient, deploy more capital to it, right? I'll be able to look at my customer journeys and look which part needs to be changed. If I'm a B2B person, it will help me deploy, okay, this is where the problem area is, this is where I want to invest more human capital. This is the place I want to maybe invest more customer engagement. So both B2C and B2B operate on the same fundamentals, but the resources that they might utilize will be significantly different from each other.
Thank you, and it's very interesting because you pointed out very rightly, it's easier to talk about omnichannel, but how do you execute it? And for that, I think organizational structure is very important, right? So because there is one team who is creating content for marketing, there is one sales team, there is one newsletter team, the marketing team, but how you are then putting all these structures in one place so they are working for the same goal? That is, how do you track those customer touch points and create that experience? Thanks, Argho. So coming back to Abhay, I think it was lovely to know what kind of innovation and doing at TVS. But keeping this innovation spirit and new business models alive. So my next question to you that with ONDC, Amazon, Cred, all these kind of new business models are coming. How do you see its association in your industry?
All right, so thank you so much, Ankur. Very, very interesting question. In fact, we've had partnerships with some of these players, in fact, already, right? And auto industry at large in India is considered one of the laggard industries because, for decades they've been doing things successfully through very typical routes, right? For example, if we talk about our distribution model, right, in India and globally now that we are present in 75 countries, has been fairly successful because of strong presence, right, over the years. So more often than not, these partnerships don't really come to your mind. Right, but having said that, that's something that we have put in effort over the last few years to try and come out of that mindset and relook at some of these partnerships. So I think on January 30th, if I'm not wrong, we partnered with Cred. And that's the day we went live with our merch and accessories category. To be honest, that was the first time on Cred that a new category of auto merch and accessories were launched with TVS. Right, day one we had the deal of the day and we had good amount of sales on our helmets, immediately proving that every month a very strong revenue stream could come in from these channels. The same thing is happening with ONDC. We are on the verge of launching our partnership with ONDC with a bunch of sub-platforms within ONDC who are going to be retailing us out. And in most cases, this is the first time that a new category is being created around auto merch and accessories. Now, because of regulations, it's very difficult to sell bikes directly via these platforms in the country. But having said that, globally, this is not a challenge. If you look at Latin America, the bikes sales model is very different, right? You don't just look at retailers. I'm sorry, you don't look at distributors. You have large malls selling bikes to you. And my first question on day one at TVS was, why can't I get my EVs to be on Decathlon? Right? Why can't I bring some of these bikes on Amazon, right? So again, a very omni-channel play where it's phygital, right? You have digital information. I purchased a car completely digitally, right? I never went to a dealership. I purchased it during COVID period, and I purchased it online. I said, the consumers today are willing to spend, what, 1.8 lakhs, 2 lakh rupees on an iPhone or some of these smartphones, 1.5 lakh plus, then why can't you purchase a 1.5, 1.6 lakh EV digitally, right? How can we create more tactile experiences so that they can experience the bikes at their home through test rides at home? So a lot of these channels, including Auto Capital, another very interesting company in the Indian ecospace of auto industry I've seen, they provide amazing test rides at home in about 150 or 200 odd cities across the country, right? So they have a very different model. So things are changing with the consumer patterns, and that is what we need to tap into some of these potential partnerships and figure out how do we, get access to the consumers, to our products in a more easy way, right? At the end of the day, that's what they want. I mean, everyone wants access to almost anything and everything at a snap of a finger. Uh, Thinking about another model that we talk about, it's not just these channels, but with the snap of a finger, can I change the color of my bike? Can you guys do that today? No, right? Or your cars? No, but imagine using nanomaterials like graphene, a coating of that in your paint. On your mobile app, you change the color to black, green, blue, whatever, right? And the color of the car changes instantly. Wouldn't that be awesome for the consumers, depending on the context of where you're going or your intent to change the look and the feel of the car or a bike, right? So these are different innovations that are out there. We are not leveraging them because, well, we don't want to change, right? But we need to change. If we can provide that access, why not? So that is what we are trying to do at TVS with some of these initiatives as well.
No, I completely agree. I think customer is the first, and how we are empowering the customer to take the power and do, whether it's changing the color or whatever the channel they want to choose it on. Definitely open platform where you are trying to create new distribution model, right? Because we at Sinch, what we are doing is the same thing where we are trying to create this buyer and seller network about retail, the distribution, integration with ONDC, right? And that we see as a great value when we are creating the CPaaS strategy in buyer-seller network. Thanks, Abhay. Swagat. I think last session also we had some discussion on data, but as a D2C brand, I think personalization, because you offer a lot of trial and then purchase and everything, how you are creating this omni-channel experience, right, while protecting the consumer privacy and the personalization and the hyper-personalization that we are talking about. So how do you see your organization coping, and as what industry is doing?
That's a very sensitive topic, especially being a platform. That's something we deal with day in, day out. And sometimes we ask ourselves this question, that to what extent you should use the consumer data to kind of personalize things. And if you see, first thing comes with kind of building that trust. You need to ask the user what all data you're using and what are permissions you kind of need explicitly. Two things on this I would like to say, right? So how do you use consumer data to your advantage without actually spooking the consumer? And that's a question I think the whole world is trying to find an answer, and there's a lot of regulation. You must have seen US Congress now getting really coming back at very large players. But let me kind of take a step back and tell you, as an organization, first of all, you need to think there is a omni-channel presence. There are multiple channels you need to create which really works for your business. And then you need to figure out the communication strategy, which is the how do I kind of talk to the users across these different channels and take the learning and engagement of user, port it to other channels. And when you are creating a channel, first of all, like for example, offline, when a user walks into our store, we essentially ask the user just to punch in their number. If the user is not comfortable, then of course you're not kind of forcing the user, right? But then you need to communicate to the user what value they're gonna get if they punch in their number, because everything suddenly kind of gets synced with their online and offline experience. Their offline order gets synced, they're gonna get recommendations, they're gonna kind of scan the QR code and kind of get some discounts and stuff. So the first thing is communicating the user upfront what value they're gonna get if they are kind of sharing your data across these different channels. And like 5-10 years back, your omni-channel presence was very simple. It was online or offline. Your omni-channel communication was very simple. Your digital, print, TV, radio. So in the last 5 years, if you talk about omni-channel today, you're like, he was talking about live commerce, then we are talking about metaverse, then we are talking about WhatsApp commerce, then we are talking about chat commerce, AI bots, conversational commerce, then we are talking about playlist commerce, which is a curation a lot of people are trying to drive across different platforms. So I don't think that, first of all, the data privacy should be such a concern at this point in time if you are communicating to the user what all information you're capturing. Because the user, when they go to a shopping site, they know. Like if you see the GDPR compliance and all that, you say that, okay, I accept the cookies. And that is the first step all of us need to kind of take in that direction. The second thing is when, like for example, let's say somebody gave us a kind of a feedback on Instagram. Now I know that that person engaged with a certain set of product. That person liked the product, loved the product, and put in a 3-liner comment. Let's say it's some new face serum that has come to the market. Now the customer has kind of given that acknowledgement in public, that it is not a hidden data that I am only telling you. And then when we take that information and say that, okay, this customer on this channel liked this kind of a product, and hence next time when they're coming into the app, we are actually kind of showing them more of face serums, that is still, I would say, ethically right. But if a consumer is, let's say, kind of browsing and kind of, let's say, in kind of an incognito mode or in the app and stuff and all that, and then the consumer adds something to the cart, and the very next moment you are kind of showing that thing in 5 different places, that kind of spooks the consumer a little bit. So there has to be a line drawn between where you remarket, how you remarket, and what the consumer is comfortable with and what they're not. I'll give you an example of live commerce, right? So because we do a lot of discovery and trial, we also do this live commerce drops. And within a 30-minute session, we almost get about 80,000 comments. And we answer roughly about 150 to 200 questions from the user. But we very consciously as an organization, we actually don't use that data. While it is, again, people kind of coming and liking it in the public and all that, but we kind of haven't taken the consent from the user in any manner, which is beyond the app, because it is kind of, again, being hosted on a third-party server. So we don't use that data. So I think all of us, some point in time, have to have that framework that what is my omni-channel presence that kind of works for me. Because, I mean, today, lot of, if you see from a shopping perspective, a lot of people tried this 3D virtual stores. Maybe a consumer today is not yet comfortable in kind of dealing with a virtual store because you are coming onto an app because you want a very quick transaction. You want a better search experience. You probably don't want an offline experience replicated into a 3D store. But like when you talk about metaverse, then if you can add a lot of layers into it where there can be a customization, then yes. So yeah, there is no, I mean, I know I gave a very long convoluted answer, but there is no right or wrong to it. I think all of us, over a period of time, the privacy concerns are only going to grow, and consumers, Indian consumers, while at this point in time, don't care about it so much. I think it's only a matter of time. And people will start questioning that, and we all have that moral responsibility to ensure how we are using the consumer data across different channels, at least have the moral responsibility to communicate that to the user.
No, absolutely. What I see is that customer is willing and they share the data, right? And this trust is built over a period of time. When a customer is going through your application or website, the processes that you bring across to the customer gives some comfort to the customer that, because at the end of the day, there is some data that customer needs to share to do some transaction. I think the processes and the experience that you give to the customer that slowly helps in building that trust. And definitely you have your backend process in that in terms of data privacy that definitely we have to go through. For example, I will share a case. At Sinch, we are implementing WhatsApp commerce, you mentioned, for one of the largest utility companies. And they had many infosec policies through the auditing that how this whole process of WhatsApp commerce is going to happen when a customer is going to check their bill, do the payments and everything. But it was also equivalently important, how do you give that comfort to the customer when they are going through this WhatsApp commerce journey, right? When they see the bill, when they put their details, whether it is UPI and all. I think that is where the trust and the processes through which you are building that trust and confidence among the customer that they are sharing the data into the right hands.
Yeah. So because you spoke about the comfort, I'll give you very interesting. I was listening to a podcast from a bureaucrat who actually implemented Aadhaar. And he was asked that, okay, when you are kind of implementing Aadhaar, didn't you guys think about the privacy concerns and all that? So there is, in India, if you see, there is a very strong cultural context also. We can't just copy West, right? Like GDPR is there because we have to figure out our own rules because culturally we're very different. So he gave a very interesting example. He said that if two people meet in India, if you see just in the conversation, Sharma ji, acha kahan naukri kar rahe hain, kya kar rahe hain, aapke do bacche the, kahan hai? In a conversation of a 2-minute pleasantry exchange, you actually collect so much of an information about a person, and that person is absolutely okay sharing. Like we met like 5-10 minutes back, and we know where we come from, we are married, we have kids or not, and it's just like a 15-20 minutes conversation. So similarly, that won't happen in a West. If two people meet, all you do is a handshake, and then probably you barely know even which city you both come from. So hence, I think we will have a very different evolution in terms of the data privacy and how we are using it across different channels for the consumer. And I think Indian consumers will be okay and will take a very different path rather than being very blinded by what conversations are happening in the West.
All right. So coming to your Agro.
I absolutely agree with what he says. Right, our definition of personal space is very different to what the Western world is. And we should define our own ecosystem and our own policies regarding data personalization. But there's a categorical disclaimer I want to give here, right? We are talking about how data is being used. So this is my personal opinion. Okay, I want my data not to be used to tell me what I need, but show me better options of what I want. So quick example to that is, I have a 7-year-old son, right? Now he wears prescription glasses. I do not want the retailer to tell me, okay, he needs maybe higher grade of prescription glasses because there is data available. With the growing age, your, power will increase or not. But I do want to know, according to his face style, which are the best glasses that suit him, right? He maybe follows Transformers, right? So are those branded glasses available in market? So that's the difference. I do not want people to dwell into my life and tell me what I might need. But yes, if I want something, show me the options, show me how it can be better, show me how can I get it cheaper. So that's the context in terms of how data should be used. But coming back to Omnichannel, right? So for a company like PayU, what happens is we are the middleware here, right? So Omnichannel becomes really important to us because the people we are serving, D2C companies, startups, right, even large enterprises. For them, implementing Omnichannel is an essential act of survival, right? And we have to implement it according to them. But is it easy to implement? What are challenges? The first challenge, I think with Omnichannel, with everybody will agree, is the instant gratification that people expect out of marketer Omnichannel. It's not going to give you that. It takes time to plan, it will take time to implement, and it will not give you immediate results. You have to spend time optimizing what you actually want for it to give you benefits. Because first, when you're getting into Omnichannel, right, as a company, you might not have the structure in place. You might not have all the data in one place. You have to create a structure where all the siloed data can speak to each other. The next thing is getting management ready, right, for the investments omnichannel, actually effective omnichannel takes, because it has to be not directly ROI driven immediately, it will take time to mature. So that is the understanding the ecosystem or the stakeholders should have. And the third and the most important bit is omnichannel will mean different things for different companies. And the whole organizational might need to be realigned to those challenges of attribution, right? It might be of who owns the data. It might be whatever. For example, for a sales-driven B2B company, it might be how much is done by sales, how much is done by marketing, right? If you go on to maybe a lending company, then the credit team who takes decision on credit also comes into the omni-channel foray, right? If you're into a B2C company, right, the logistics part and return to origin comes into omni-channel play, right? Inventory control comes into omni-channel play. So getting this all systems in place and talking to each other, I think you can't do it alone. Get professional help. That's what I would say.
Lovely to summarize that. So as we are moving towards the end of the discussion, we talked about innovation, we talked about new business models, the data privacy. So Abhay, what are the key takeaways if you want to summarize the discussion?
I think there are quite a few really good points, right, from the conversation today. But I think for me, something that's closer to my heart as well, I would just say it out. For a moment, right, when you're talking about catering to your consumers, right, remove the capitalist lens just for a bit, right? Just remove that lens for a bit. Think about the problems that you're solving. It doesn't really matter about the channel that you're using, the kind of innovative products that you're launching, right? Just remove that lens, see if you're creating value. If you're creating value, run experiments, deep dive into it, and then grow that capitalist, or put that capitalist hat or capitalist lens back on, right? Because then you'll be able to make money. Because money in my head is the byproduct if you really are able to create value for the customers. So at the end of the day, no matter the channels, it's about creating that seamless, hyper-personalized experience for the consumers.
Thank you. Coming to Swagat, how do you want to summarize and key takeaways for the audience?
So I would say first, get your data platform right. That's the first thing. Second, identify what really matters to your consumer. Don't get overwhelmed by because everyone is doing a AR filter, I want to do a AR filter. Doesn't matter. I mean, find out your customer journey, find out those truths where it really matters to the consumer. And the third thing is be transparent to the consumer, because if you are delivering to the consumer what really matters, like Argho said, the consumer won't mind, honestly. And I think if these three comes together, you're delivering a beautiful omnichannel experience, which is right for your business.
All right, Argho, 3 words you want to summarize.
Omnichannel does not mean you need to use all channels. Omnichannel means just focus on channels that matter to you. So don't hyper diversify, it never helps.
Right, thank you so much. And that brings end to the discussion.